You wake up before sunrise, covered in dust, with a revolver hidden under your coat and a price already hanging over your head. Somewhere behind you, a sheriff is asking questions and writing down a description that sounds a little too much like you. Somewhere ahead of you, a town full of strangers is waiting, and you do not know which of them has seen your face on a wall. In the Old West, being an outlaw does not mean freedom. It means living as if every door, every face, and every sound could be the last thing you ever hear. You did not always live like this. There was a time before the running, before the lying, before the long nights with one eye open. But that life is gone now, and the man you used to be is buried somewhere back along the trail. What is left is a name you no longer say out loud and a body that is always tired. Today, you are going to find out what this life really costs. Not the story people will tell about it years from now, the truth of it. The cold mornings, the empty stomach, the fear that never leaves your chest. So saddle the horse, pull your hat low, and ride with me into a world where the only law that matters is whether or not you live to see another sunrise. You probably did not become an outlaw because you wanted to be famous. That is the part the legends always get wrong. Most men who ended up with bounties on their heads did not set out to be feared. They were soldiers who came home from a war to find their farms gone and their families scattered. They were ranch hands who worked an entire season for wages that vanished the moment a bank failed. They were drifters and miners and railroad men who chased a promise of gold or steady work and found only dust and broken hands. You were one of them once, an ordinary man with an ordinary hunger, trying to stay alive in a country that did not care whether you did. Maybe it began with one bad decision, a card game that turned into a fight, a debt you could not pay, a friend who asked you to hold a horse outside a building while he went inside, and you did not ask why until you heard the shouting. Maybe you pulled a trigger to save your own life, and a man died, and no judge in that territory was going to believe a stranger over the dead man's family. The line between a working man and a wanted man was thin out here, and you crossed it before you understood that there was no crossing back. One night, you were a person with a future. The next morning, you were a problem that other men were paid to solve. That is the cruelty of it. You did not wake up a criminal. You slid into this life one small step at a time, each step feeling reasonable, each one feeling like the only choice you had. By the time you understood what you had become, the wanted posters were already printed, and the only road left to you ran straight into the dark. So when people ask, years from now, why a man would choose a life like this, the honest answer is that most of them never chose it at all. The West chose it for them. Look at yourself now, and you will not see a legend. You will see a man worn down to the bone. Your clothes are stiff with old dust and older sweat, the same shirt you have worn for more days than you can count. Your coat is heavy and patched, chosen not for how it looks, but for how well it hides a weapon, and how much warmth it holds on a freezing night in the open. Your boots are cracked along the sides, the leather split from too many miles and too few repairs. Your beard has grown in rough and uneven because a clean shave costs time and money and draws attention, and you cannot afford any of the three. Your horse tells the same story. He is thinner than he should be, ribs showing under a dull coat because you cannot always feed him what he needs, and you cannot ever let him rest as long as he deserves. A tired horse is a death sentence in this life. A horse that cannot run when the moment comes is the difference between escaping into the hills and swinging from a rope. So you watch him the way you watch your own hands, always measuring how much he has left in him, Always afraid the answer is not enough? And here is the thing no story ever mentions. You smell. You smell of sweat and smoke and horse and old leather and the iron tang of fear that never quite washes out. Water is precious on the trail, and a bath is a luxury for men who do not have to keep moving. When you finally do ride into a town, the people there notice you before you say a single word. They see the dust on a man who has been sleeping rough. They see the way your eyes move, checking corners, counting strangers. They see a coat that is too heavy for the weather, and they understand exactly what it hides. You learn to read your own appearance the way a hunted animal learns to read the wind. You know that a man who looks too poor draws suspicion, and a man who looks too rich draws envy, and both can get you killed. You try to look forgettable, ordinary, just another tired rider passing through. But the harder you try to disappear, the more you feel every eye in the street settle on the back of your neck. In this life, your own face is the one thing you can never set down, and it is the thing most likely to betray you. The moment you ride into a town, you stop being a man and start being a calculation. Before your horse has even slowed, you are counting exits. There is the stable where you can leave the animal and reach him fast if you have to run. There is the alley between the buildings that leads back to open country. There is the rear door of the saloon, the one the staff use, the one a man can slip through while trouble is busy at the front. You map the whole place in your head before you have spoken to a soul, because the few seconds it takes to find a way out are seconds you will not have when the shooting starts. Every wall could be holding your portrait. The wanted poster was the most dangerous piece of paper in the West, and you have learned to scan for it without ever seeming to look. The wall outside the marshal's office, the post beside the general store, the board near the stage line where notices are nailed up for everyone to read. You glance at them the way any traveler might, casual and bored, while your heart pounds and your eyes hunt for your own description. Wanted, reward offered. A drawing that may or may not look like you, and a sum of money that turns every stranger in that town into a man who might want to collect it. You do not sit with your back to the room. You learned that early, and you learned it the hard way. Or you learned it from a man who did not and did not live long enough to teach anyone else. You take the corner. You take the chair against the wall where you can see the door. You do not drink so much that your hands grow slow or your tongue grows loose. You do not trust a friendly smile, because the friendliest man in the room is often the one who has already recognized you and is buying you a drink to keep you in your seat while someone runs for the sheriff. A small frontier town was a trap dressed up as a refuge. It offered everything a tired outlaw wanted: a bed, a hot meal, a roof, a glass of something strong. But every one of those comforts came with a price, and the price was being seen. The clerk who takes your money looks at your face. The boy who feeds your horse looks at your saddle. The woman who serves your food remembers the man who did not talk much and paid with coins instead of credit. You cannot buy a single human comfort in this life without leaving a trail of people who can describe you later. So you take what you need, you keep your words short, and you are gone before the town has finished deciding what to make of you. The saloon glows from across the street, warm and golden in the cold evening, and everything inside you wants to walk through that door. There is light in there. There is music, a piano somewhere under the noise, and laughter, and the smell of food, and whiskey, and tobacco. After days alone on the trail with nothing but the sound of your own horse, that warmth pulls at a man like a hand around the heart. But you have learned that the saloon is not a place of rest. It is the most dangerous room you will enter all day. The saloon was the beating heart of a frontier town, and that is exactly what made it deadly. Everything passed through it. Money changed hands over cards and bottles. News traveled faster across those tables than any telegraph wire. Cattlemen, miners, gamblers, drifters, soldiers, and lawmen all crowded into the same smoke, and mixed in among them were the men who made their living hunting other men. The bounty hunter does not look like a monster. He looks like a tired traveler with a drink in front of him, watching the door, listening to names, waiting for the right face to walk in out of the cold. So you step inside, and the warmth hits you, and you do not let it soften you. The room is loud and full of smoke, but to you it does not feel safe. Every burst of laughter could be about you. Every whisper could be your name, passing from one mouth to another. The man sitting alone in the corner with his hat low may simply be drunk and broke and sad, or he may be wide awake behind that hat, memorizing every man who enters, deciding whether the reward on your head is worth the risk of taking you here in front of witnesses. You order something, but you barely drink it. You keep your hands free and your back to the wall. You listen more than you talk, because in a saloon, the most valuable thing is information, and the most dangerous thing is your own voice. You hear which trails have lawmen on them. You hear which ranches are hiring and which have been robbed. You hear sometimes your own deeds told back to you by a stranger who has no idea the man he is describing is sitting 3 feet away. In those moments, you keep your face flat and your eyes down, and you learn what the world believes about you, and you use it. A single wrong word in a saloon could end you. An argument over a card, a spilled drink, a look held a second too long. Men in this world carried their pride in their holsters, and the line between an insult and a gunfight was thin enough to step over by accident. You learn to back down when backing down keeps you alive, even when every instinct screams at you to answer. Dead men do not collect on their pride. You came here to survive, not to win an argument. And so you swallow the words that a free man might have spoken, finish what little you will drink, and leave before the night turns mean. The warmth follows you out the door, and the cold takes it back within a step, and you are alone again. And alone is the only place you are ever truly safe. Before we ride deeper into this life, let me ask one small thing of you. If you are walking these dusty streets with me, if you want to keep living inside these stories of the real Old West, then take a moment right now to subscribe to Wyatt Reconstructs the West and leave a like on this video. It is a small thing for you, but it is everything for this channel, and it is the only way these journeys into the past can keep being made. Subscribe, hit that like button, and then climb back into the saddle, because the hardest part of an outlaw's life is still ahead of us. You learn to sleep the way a wild animal sleeps, which is to say you never really sleep at all. A part of you stays awake even with your eyes closed, listening. The sound of a horse outside your window can pull you from the deepest rest in an instant, every nerve alive, one hand already moving toward the weapon you keep within reach, even in bed. A knock on the door can freeze the blood in your veins. A voice you do not recognize in the hallway of a cheap hotel can have you at the window, measuring the drop to the street below before your mind has even finished waking up. Rest is something other men do. You only ever pause. You change your name the way other men change their shirts. The name your mother gave you is too dangerous to carry now, so you become someone else in every town, a different man for every clerk and stable boy. Careful never to use the same false name twice in the same county. You avoid the new photograph studios entirely, because a picture is a face that can travel without you, a face that can hang on a wall in a town you have never seen. You stop asking other people their names, and you flinch a little when they offer yours, because every name you learn is a name that can be repeated to a lawman, and every person who remembers you is a thread that can be pulled until it leads to a rope. The loneliness of it is a weight you carry every waking hour. You cannot let anyone close, because closeness means trust, and trust is the most expensive thing in this world. You ride into a town, you do your business, and you ride out before anyone can grow fond of you or curious about you. You watch families through lit windows on cold nights, and you understand that the ordinary life you see in there is a country you can never return to. There will be no home, no wife who knows your real name, no child who carries it. You traded all of that the day you crossed the line, and the bill comes due a little more every night you spend alone under the open sky. And the trail itself is trying to kill you when no man is. You ride through heat that cracks your lips and cold that numbs your hands on the reins. You ford rivers swollen with snowmelt and pray your tired horse does not slip. You go hungry more often than the stories admit, chewing on hard biscuit and dried meat for days, sometimes going without when there is nothing to be had and no town safe enough to enter. A small wound that a doctor could close in 5 minutes becomes a festering, fevered danger, because there is no doctor for a man who cannot give his name and cannot stay still long enough to heal. Many outlaws were not brought down by a sheriff's bullet at all. They were brought down by infection, by exposure, by hunger, by the slow, grinding cost of a life with no roof and no rest. Here is the lie that pulled so many men into this life, and here is the truth that waited for them. The lie says that an outlaw gets rich, that a single good robbery sets a man up for years, that the money flows like water, and the living is easy. The truth is that the money runs through your fingers faster than you can ever take it in, and you are almost always poorer than the honest men you envy from the shadows. Think about what this life actually costs to live. A fresh horse, when yours is spent, costs more money than most men see in a season. And you may need a fresh horse twice a year or more. Ammunition costs money, and a man on the run cannot afford to run out. Food costs money, and you pay more for it than others do, because you take it quick and you take it where no one will ask questions. A bed in a hotel costs money, and you change hotels and towns constantly, paying again and again for a few hours of uneasy sleep. Every comfort, every necessity, every mile carries a price, and you are paying all of them at once with money you cannot earn in any honest way. And then there are the costs the legends never mention at all. Silence costs money. The stable boy who recognized your horse, the clerk who looked too long at your face, the man in the saloon who heard the wrong name. Sometimes you buy their forgetting with a coin pressed into a palm, and you can never be sure the forgetting will last. Loyalty costs more than anything else in this world. The men who ride with you do not ride for friendship. They ride for their share, and their share had better come, or they will find a better offer somewhere else, perhaps from the very people hunting you. Every dollar you steal has a dozen hands reaching for it before it has even cooled, and most of those hands belong to the people closest to you. So you watch your small stash of money disappear almost as fast as it arrives, hidden in a boot or buried at the base of a tree you hope you can find again. You learn that wealth in this life is not a pile of gold. It is a few more days of freedom, a few more meals, a few more miles between you and the rope, the fortune the stories promised was never real. There is only the next expense, and the one after that, and the cold certainty that the money will run out long before the danger ever does. The men riding beside you are not your brothers. No matter what the songs will say, they are hungry, nervous, frightened men, every one of them carrying his own bounty and his own breaking point. You eat with them, and you ride with them, and you trust them with your life in the moment of a robbery, because you have no choice. But you never forget what they are. One of them may pull you from a river or drag you out of a gunfight today, and the same man may sell your name to a marshal tomorrow for the price of his own freedom or a softer sentence. A gang is not a family. It is a pack of desperate men held together only by need, and need is the first thing to break. Betrayal was the most common death in this world, far more common than a fair fight in a dusty street. The man who knows where you sleep, who knows your real name, who knows the trails you favor and the places you feel safe, is the most dangerous man alive to you, and he is also the man you call a friend. Lawmen understood this. They did not need to outshoot a gang. They only needed to make one member a better offer, a reduced sentence, a share of the reward, a quiet word, and a clean escape in exchange for a name and a location. And so the gangs ate themselves from the inside, one frightened man at a time. You learn to watch your own partners the way you watch the door of a saloon. You notice when a man grows quiet, when he stops meeting your eyes, when he disappears into a town for longer than the errand should take. You notice when someone starts asking too many questions about your plans, your money, your next move. Jealousy festers when the shares are uneven. Fear festers when the law gets close. And somewhere in that festering, a man you have bled beside decides that his own neck is worth more than yours. You may never see it coming. The bullet that ends most outlaws comes from a direction they trusted, so you trust no one fully. And that distrust eats at you as surely as any disease. You ride with men you cannot rely on. You depend on men who may destroy you. And you carry the constant, exhausting knowledge that your safety is only ever borrowed from people who could sell it back to your enemies at any moment. It is a special kind of loneliness to be surrounded by allies and to know that any one of them might be your executioner. In the Old West, the sheriff in front of you was rarely the thing that killed you. It was the friend behind you. The day your face goes up on a wanted poster, you stop being a person. You become a sum of money, a figure printed in plain numbers that any man, woman, or child can read, and that figure follows you into every town and every conversation and every dream. Before the bounty, a stranger was just a stranger. After the bounty, every stranger is a man calculating what your life is worth and whether he is bold enough to claim it. The reward changes the very air around you. It turns the whole world into a trap that is always closing. Once your face is on that poster, every person you meet becomes a possible threat. The hotel clerk who takes your coin and studies your eyes a heartbeat too long. The stable boy who looks at your horse and then looks at you and then looks away too fast. The drunk slumped at the end of the bar who may not be as drunk as he pretends. Even a child staring at you across a street, holding the gaze of an adult with that fearless directness children have, can send your hand drifting toward the inside of your coat before you catch yourself. The bounty makes a man see enemies everywhere, and the terrible thing is that he is not wrong to. The reward also calls in the worst men the frontier had to offer. The bounty hunter was a creature bred by this system, a man who hunted other men for pay, and felt nothing but the weight of the coin. He did not care about justice. He did not care about your story or how you came to cross that line. He cared about the figure on the poster, and he would track you across territories, sleep on your trail, and wait outside a building for hours in the cold for the single moment he needed. Some of them wanted you alive, because alive paid more. Many did not care either way, because a body was easier to transport than a living man who might still fight. And the bounty poisons the few human connections you have left. A woman you might have trusted now has a reason to turn you in. A man you once called a friend now knows exactly what your capture is worth. The reward reaches into every relationship and asks the same quiet question. Is loyalty to this man worth more than the money on his head? For most people, in a hard country where money meant survival, the answer came easier than you would like to believe. You learn to assume the worst of everyone because the poster on the wall has already turned everyone into someone who might choose the money over you. So you live inside a shrinking circle. Fewer towns are safe. Fewer faces are friendly. Fewer roads can be traveled in daylight. The price on your head does not just put you in danger. It slowly closes the world around you until there is almost nowhere left to stand, until the open West that once promised endless freedom has become a country-sized cage with your name written on every bar. Years from now, men like you will be turned into legends. People who never smelled the smoke or felt the cold will sit in warm rooms and tell stories about the outlaws of the Old West. They will speak of courage. They will speak of freedom and rebellion and the romance of a life lived outside the law. They will hang paintings and print books and tell their children about bold men on fast horses who answered to no one and feared nothing. And almost none of it will be true. They will not remember the cold nights because cold does not make a good story. They will not remember the hours spent shivering in the open with no fire, because a fire could be seen for miles, the way your bones ached by morning, the way you could not feel your fingers on the reins. They will not remember the hunger that hollowed you out, the days with nothing to eat, the weakness that made even climbing into the saddle a struggle. They will turn the misery into adventure, because the misery is the part that does not sell. They will not remember the wounds, the bullet that was never properly removed and ached with every change in the weather for the rest of a short life, the infection that turned a small cut into a fever that nearly killed a man alone in the brush, with no one to bring water and no one to know if he lived or died. They will not remember the rotting teeth, the broken bones that healed crooked, the slow ruin of a body that was never allowed to rest or heal. The legend rides a fine horse and wears a clean hat. The real man limped and ached and aged 20 years in 5. And most of all, they will not remember the faces, the people you betrayed to save yourself, the partner you left behind when the law got close, the one whose eyes you still see when you finally do sleep, the family of the man you killed, whose grief you never witnessed but always carried, the friends who trusted you and the friends you could not trust, the names you forced yourself to forget and the ones that refused to be forgotten. The legend has no ghosts. The real outlaw was haunted by them every single night, and there were more of them every year. That is the cruelest trick the legend plays. It takes the worst life a man could live and dresses it in glory, so that the truth of it is buried under the story. The men who actually lived it did not feel free. They felt hunted and tired and afraid and alone. They did not ride toward adventure. They ran from everything, including the people they used to be. By the time the stories were written, the men in them were long dead, and the dead cannot stand up and say that none of it was worth it. So what was it really like to be an outlaw in the Old West? Now you know, because you have lived it with me, mile by mile, Fear by fear, it was not freedom, it was not glory. It was a life spent running from the law, from your enemies, from the men who rode beside you, and in the end, from yourself. It was cold mornings and empty stomachs and a hand that never strayed far from a weapon. It was a name you could not say, and a face you could not hide, and a circle of safety that grew smaller with every passing season. Ask yourself honestly, now that you have walked these streets and slept these uneasy nights, would you have survived it? Could you have lived with one eye always open, trusting no one, loving no one, leaving every town before it could decide what to make of you? Could you have watched your money vanish, and your friends turn and your body break, and kept climbing into the saddle morning after morning because stopping meant the rope? Most men who tried this life did not last long. The West did not forgive mistakes, and it did not run out of bullets, ropes, or bounty hunters. You may have ridden into the West looking for freedom. Many did. They came chasing a country with no fences and no masters, a place where a man could finally be his own. But as an outlaw, the West does not become your freedom. It becomes your prison, a prison without walls, without bars, without a door, stretching from horizon to horizon, following you down every trail and into every town and through every restless night. And the worst part of that prison is that you built it yourself, one small choice at a time, and there is no sheriff alive who can ever let you out. If you rode this whole journey with me, then you already know how rare it is to find the real story underneath the legend. And that is exactly what this channel exists to do. So if you have not done it yet, subscribe to Wyatt Reconstructs the West right now and leave a like on this video, because every single one helps these stories reach the people who would love them as much as you do. And before you ride off, tell me one thing in the comments. What corner of the Old West do you want to live inside next? The gunfighters who hunted men like the one you just became, the forgotten women who held these wild towns together, the miners, the lawmen, the railroads, the saloons. Tell me where we ride next, and I will take you there. Until then, keep your hat low and your eyes open, and I will see you on the trail.